Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
So today we're diving into the thinking of venture capitalist Vinod Khosla. We've got some really interesting clips from a recent talk he gave.
Yeah, it's from a YouTube video, I think, on the Peter Diamandis channel called AI Venture Capitalist. These tech predictions will change everything by 2030. Quite the title.
It is. And our goal today is really to unpack his predictions. He talks a lot about AI, robotics, energy, transportation, and try to figure out what it all means, for you listening.
And Khosla, it's worth remembering, he's not just some investor. He co-founded Sun Microsystems way back.
Right.
And he's put serious money, like billions, into AI, clean tech, biotech. He actually sees himself more as a company builder, an entrepreneur.
Which definitely gives his perspective some weight, I think. It's not just abstract theory.
Exactly. And a core theme, you really see it running through his ideas, is this belief that technology turns scarcity into abundance. That's sort of his fundamental starting point.
Okay, so let's jump in with maybe his most startling prediction. He made this back in December 2023. He's talking about 1 billion bipedal robots by 2040.
1 billion. With a B.
Yeah. And get this, he thinks this whole area, robotics, will be bigger than the entire auto industry within, 20 years.
Wow. And I remember seeing something maybe 6 months before that prediction where he was suggesting they could get the price down to maybe $10,000.
Exactly. And become as essential as a smartphone.
Okay, 1 billion robots by 2040. I mean, the scale is just, it's hard to even picture.
Right.
If that happens, the implications for labor, for work, huge. He suggests these robots could do more manual work than all humans do now.
And they work 24/7, no breaks. The sheer output is staggering to think about.
And he connects this directly to AGI, right? Artificial General Intelligence.
He does. The idea being that as AI gets smarter, approaching human-level thinking, it basically makes expertise, almost free. It massively boosts our collective capacity for thought.
Which is a whole other can of worms we can get into. But sticking with robots for a sec, he made an interesting point about the auto industry maybe missing the boat here.
Yeah, he kind of called them out, except for Elon Musk and Tesla.
Right, with Optimus. Musk seems to see robotics as maybe even bigger than cars for Tesla's future.
Which suggests maybe the established players are just too focused on, cars, not seeing this massive shift in physical labor itself coming.
It's a potential blind spot, for sure.
Okay,
so from robots doing physical work, he pivots to AI and expertise, cognitive work.
Yeah, this part really got me thinking. He predicts expertise, think doctors, teachers, engineers will become basically free.
Free. How?
Through AI tutors, AI medical assistants available all the time. And it's not a new idea for him, apparently. He pointed back to blog posts he wrote way back in 2012.
Really? What were they about?
Titles like, Do we need doctors? And Do we need teachers? So he's been thinking about AI disrupting these fields for over a decade. He even mentioned AI tutors being used right now in China.
So it's already happening in some places, and it's not just doctors and teachers ready. So there's quite a few professions.
Oh, yeah. Oncologists, structural engineers, accountants. Basically any job category, he said, with over 100,000 workers in the U.S.
That's a lot of jobs potentially being reshaped. It's not just automation of simple tasks. It's high-level cognitive stuff.
Totally. And in the near term, like the next 5 years, he envisions every professional having maybe 5 AI interns.
5 AI interns. So like a doctor managing 5 AI assistants doing diagnoses or research.
Something like that. Or an accountant with 5 AI analysts number crunching. But then he asks this bigger systemic question. If all expertise is essentially free, how do you even design something like healthcare?
Or education.
Yeah.
Or, anything based on specialized knowledge.
Exactly. And how do you pay people? If a farm worker and a top surgeon both have access to the same level of AI-augmented knowledge, what does compensation even look like?
That really forces a rethink of, value. What we value, how society rewards different kinds of work. It's a massive question.
It is. Okay, switching gears slightly, he also talked about the internet and advertising. His prediction. Most of how we access the internet in the future won't be us browsing.
Oh, hello then.
Through AI agents acting for us. Your personal AI goes out and finds information, buys things, manages schedules.
Okay, I can see that. But then, what happens to advertising? If my AI agent is making buying decisions based purely on logic and my preferences.
Exactly. Khosla's point. He seriously questions the future of traditional advertising, the kind that tries to persuade or create desire.
So the AI agent just ignores the flashy ads and looks for specs and price comparisons.
Pretty much. He suggests advertising might revert to its original purpose, just providing information. Less manipulation, more facts.
That would be quite a shift. He sees evidence people might accept this.
Well, he points to things like ChatGPT's subscription model. People are willing to pay directly for useful AI tools and information rather than getting it free, but funded by ads that might not serve their best interests.
That makes sense. And he gave some examples of what AI could already do, didn't he? Like
Yeah.
that deep research point.
Right. He mentioned his chief of staff using AI for complex research in viral immunology and getting results on par with an experienced professional. Another example was retail strategy.
Wow. So AI isn't just summarizing, it's generating deep insights.
Yeah, he calls AI a superpower. He talked about it explaining complex scientific concepts really clearly, even in different styles, like how Steve Jobs might explain it,
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
and helping break incremental thinking. He had this kind of cryptic example, row 30 something, basically suggesting AI can see solutions humans might miss because we're stuck in established patterns.
So it amplifies our abilities, but also offers genuinely new perspectives. That's powerful. Democratizing access to that kind of analysis could be huge.
Definitely. What about programming, coding?
Ah, yes.
OT.
He laid out two possibilities, kind of opposites. Either he thinks we won't need nearly as many human programmers,
Or
or everyone becomes a programmer.
how does that work?
Well, he mentioned investments in two different approaches. One is cognition AI. The AI basically does the programming. He used that analogy of an AI software intern again.
Okay, so AI writes the code. What's the other approach?
Replit. Their focus is on letting people program using natural language.
Yeah.
You just describe what you want the software to do in plain English.
Seriously, like, build me a simulation of the solar system.
Apparently.
Why not?
Or even complex enterprise applications. You just talk to the computer.
So it's flipping the script. Instead of us learning computer languages.
The computers are learning our language. He even suggested things like menus in software might disappear eventually. Just talk or type what you want.
That would make technology accessible in a whole new way.
Absolutely. It's a pretty fundamental shift in human-computer interaction.
Okay, let's talk energy. He sounded quite optimistic here, right? On climate solutions, too.
Very optimistic. He talked a lot about fusion energy, specifically Commonwealth fusion.
Right? The MIT spin out. What's the latest there?
He expects them to demonstrate net positive energy, getting more energy out than they put in by early 2027.
That's soon. That's the big milestone everyone's been waiting for with fusion.
It really is.
Yeah.
But what was maybe even more interesting was his idea for deployment. Not just building brand new fusion plants from scratch.
What's the alternative?
Retrofitting existing power plants.
Right.
Taking old coal or natural gas plants and replacing their boilers with fusion reactors.
Whoa. Why do that?
Speed. You bypass a lot of the incredibly slow permitting and site approval processes. Use the existing grid connections, the existing infrastructure. It could massively accelerate the rollout.
That's actually quite clever. A pragmatic way to get fusion onto the grid faster.
Seems like it. And he didn't just talk fusion, he also mentioned geothermal.
Yeah, super hot geothermal. What's the deal with that?
Temperatures like 450 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
Much hotter than conventional geothermal. He thinks this could be cheaper than natural gas.
Cheaper than the gas.
Well, before 2030, he suggested. The key is better drilling tech, being able to drill deep enough through hard rock at those crazy temperatures.
So advances in drilling could unlock a massive clean energy source that's also cost effective.
That's the potential, yeah. He seems confident the tech is getting there.
All right, next up, transportation. He had some maybe controversial takes here, particularly on self-driving cars.
He did. He's not convinced individual self-driving cars are the answer.
Yeah.
He actually thinks they could make traffic worse.
Worse. Why? Like the Uber effect, where convenience leads to more cars on the road?
Kind of, yeah. More induced demand, more congestion. He thinks the real opportunity is driverless public transit.
Okay, so not buses on fixed routes, but...
Think more like personal on-demand vehicles,
Yeah.
little pods or cars, summoned when you need them, that take you directly where you're going. No fixed schedules, no intermediate stops.
So faster than even having a chauffeur, because it's point to point.
Exactly. He does see a role for things like Waymo, maybe for last-mile connections or specific use cases.
But the core idea is rethinking public transit with autonomy.
Right. He pointed out the fundamental limit in cities is street width. You can't easily add more lanes.
True.
So his proposed solution is an AI-powered public transit system. These automated pods that could potentially increase the capacity of a street by, like, 10 times, using only the width of a bike lane.
10 times capacity in a bike lane width. How?
Highly efficient routing, coordination, maybe smaller vehicles platooning closely together, all managed by AI.
That's a radical vision. Less congestion maybe makes longer commutes feasible. Could even help with housing costs if people can live further out affordably.
That's the implication.
Yeah.
It tackles mobility and potentially second-order effects like housing.
And then finally, he circled back to his core idea, resource abundance.
Yeah, basically reaffirming that we don't really have resource limits, just limits in how we look for things and the tools we use.
He mentioned looking deeper underground.
Efforts to explore much further beneath the Earth's surface for minerals, metals, suggesting there's way more down there than we've accessed so far. Technology unlocks resources.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. Key takeaways from this Khosla deep dive.
Well, the sheer scale of the robotics prediction is one. 1 billion bipedal robots changing labor.
Right. Then there's the democratization of expertise via AI doctors, teachers, engineers, potentially free.
Which leads to huge questions about value and compensation. We also touched on AI agents changing how we use the internet and killing traditional advertising.
Yeah, the shift back to informational ads. And programming potentially becoming either obsolete for humans or accessible to everyone through natural language.
Don't forget energy. Big optimism on fusion, especially that idea of retrofitting old plants.
And superhot geothermal being potentially cheaper than gas thanks to drilling tech.
And finally, transportation, questioning individual robo-cars, pushing for that AI-driven, high-capacity public transit.
All leading back to that theme of tech creating abundance, overcoming perceived limits.
Exactly. Which leaves us, and you listening, with a pretty big thought to chew on, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, what happens when these fundamental constraints, access to expertise, the capacity of our streets, maybe even energy or material resources, what happens when technology starts erasing those constraints?
What new possibilities open up, but also what new challenges? When scarcity keeps getting pushed back by abundance, how does that reshape, well, everything, our lives, our society?
It's definitely just the start of the conversation. Lots to think about there.